All right, welcome to the New York Vendée Les Sables d'Olonne. We are here in New York City. I am your host of the live, Chris Museler. We have Rosalind Kipper and we have Will Harris that sailed together quite a bit on Militia in the ocean race that happened about a year or so ago. And right now we're just waiting for the start. I just want to let you guys introduce yourselves.
Yes, thank you. So my name is Rosalind Kuiper, and indeed I sailed with Will around the world last year. I'm now skipper of Team Holcim PRB, so I'm quite excited to be here and to comment the start live. Our skipper is out there, all of our skippers, and thanks for having me.
Yeah, like Rosie said, I'm Will Harris. I sailed with Rosie on board Team Militia around the world in the ocean race, and I'm now with Team Militia preparing Boris for the New York Vendée, the race he's about to take the start in. And we've been preparing here in New York, getting ready for the race, so great to be here and talk about the start.
Awesome. This race was run in 2016, and now it's being run again, and it is the last chance to qualify for the 2024 Vendée Globe, which your teammate Boris is sailing in, your teammate Nicholas Lundvin it will be sailing in hopefully, and this is a qualifier, so people have to add up their miles to prove themselves and prove their boats, and then also get selected to be in the race. And Rosalind and Nico is getting through that right now, right?
Yes, exactly. So this is the last transatlantic race before the big Vendée Globe, and the boat is ready. Nico is ready, and he seems to be very relaxed. It's quite character, but he is super ready, and he's gonna smash it this race. Sure, the whole team is supporting him.
Now the coolest thing to have both of you here, you've both done a lap of the planet. You guys have both sailed solo, double-handed. Will, I watched you in Class 40 sail double-handed long distances, and I think the greatest thing as we sit here and watch this fleet that's about 90 miles off, we're keeping the fleet pretty far offshore to stay away from marine life, and it's kind of a new method of starting right now, but the best thing about having you guys here is you tell us what the skippers are going through.
Yeah, exactly, Chris. It's it's a completely new format of starting for these skippers for this race, due to the marine mammals around the waters of New York. The decision was made to take the start 100 miles offshore, and that's to keep the boats nice and slow to the start. We said goodbye to our skippers last night actually, and they spent all night at sea already, and nice and slow cruising to the start. Doing their normal preparations, but in a solo configuration. So hopefully they'll be nice and fresh. We're within an hour to the start now, so they're going to be getting ready for that final crossing of the line, and it's going to be a whole new experience for them.
Rosie, do you think it's any different for the skippers where they normally have people help them raise their sails, get the boats ready, last minute checks on the devices, and then they jump off the boat like only a couple minutes before the start, but they've been out there by themselves? Do you think that's any bigger of a challenge for the skippers?
Yes, for sure. It's very different than we used to. Normally, the technical team can stay on the boat up to 4 minutes before the start, and now we all had to get off yesterday. So the skippers, as Will said, had to sail overnight by themselves, prepare everything. You can't sail faster than 10 knots due to the exclusion zone and the whales and the marine mammals out there. So they have to stay awake. So they will be a bit more tired, and it's actually. Interesting to see how the different skippers deal with that. Some skippers, they feel really at ease. They're happy to go and they just sit out there, wait for the right time. And some skippers, they like to stretch it a bit longer, have the team a bit longer on the boat, even like to have a pizza delivered yesterday evening. So it's very interesting how every skipper deals different with this changing situation.
Cool, and this is a long race. This is a 3,000 mile race. Some skippers, there's a lot of pressure. They have to complete this race to even make their qualifying miles. Some skippers, they have to complete this maybe to get selected, depending on how that works. And but 3,000 miles, they're preparing for an around the world race this fall. Is that a sprint, or it depends on what their goals are for this race? They don't have all the same goal, do they?
Yeah, exactly. This New York Vendée race is a really fascinating one because the skippers will have such different objectives. Some of them really need to make sure they cross the finish line in Les Sables d'Olonne to make sure that they qualify for that much bigger race, the Vendée Globe at the end of the year. This is kind of the final test for some other skippers as well to prove their boats. You know, we've got a lot of new boats in the fleet. 13 new boats will be taking the start line in the Vendée Globe at the end of this year. So this is the final kind of stretching of the legs, crossing the Atlantic, 3,600 miles, and where you can really push and really test everything that still needs to be tested to then take the boats over 70 days around the world in the Vendée Globe at the end of the year. So it's a completely different mix of objectives. Some people just trying to finishing it, and some people who are going to be giving it all their all to try and win it.
Yeah, and some of these skippers, as we see here, we watch Militia, the team that you will have helped prepared, leaving New York Harbor, you know, in quite flashy manner.
Yeah, no, you know, we had a fantastic exit out of New York. I think we hit about 30 knots boat speed there, and you know, getting the boats on the foils is what they're really about. These AMOCAs, they're really fast, and you've got to. We had to do a final test before we let Boris to go and sail the boat by himself. So I was on board at that moment, and it was quite a nice experience to be leaving New York like that.
Well, we can't forget that this was a New York stopover, and it was really important for these teams not just to share their brands around the world because they are all sponsored, but the other part of it is to bring some kind of influence into the U.S. market. Showcase this around the world race. They don't get to stop anywhere when they do their racing, and it's a very much a French affair, although we have a lot of internationals this year. That's what we're going to be talking about a lot in the starting sequence and when we interview some of the skippers live from their boats. But, you know, New York's been a fantastic time. Both of you have been working on the boats. Do these skippers get a chance to relax? I mean, obviously they have a lot on the line. For normal sailors like me, to sail across the Atlantic, I'd be so stressed out. But do they get to relax here?
Actually, I think it really depends on the skippers. Some skippers, they did already the transatlantic race towards New York. Some skippers went home to see their families and take a rest. Some, they went to the Caribbean islands to take a holiday. For other skippers, the children, they came to New York. It was a stopover about 3 weeks, so it was quite demanding for the short team as well. But I think all these skippers, they take the rest that they need in a way that they need. So it really depends for everyone.
Fantastic. And, you know, here we're looking at Newport, Rhode Island, which is where I'm from and where I was reporting from. You know, the fleet was split for many different reasons between these ports. Strangely, there's not a lot of deep water dockage here in New York City because everyone comes like right up along the bulkheads. But in Newport, it was really fantastic. We talked to Ollie here, who was a boat captain before he's started to do this Vendée Globe campaign, and he's been in Newport. He used a lot of his old connections. You need anything done in the marine industry in Newport, Rhode Island, and they have it for you. And there was some activation in terms of clients and visitors and guests in Newport, but it was really just a place to keep the fleet where they have a lot of different resources. I know you both have been there.
Yeah, actually we have been there about 1 year ago when we did the Around the World race, and we had a stop in Newport. Actually, we broke the record when we sailed from Newport back to Europe with Team Holcim POB first, and then Team Alicia. So it was for us a very exciting time to be here in America and actually to see the enthusiasm behind it. There are a lot of very passionate sailing followers, and even here they come to visit New York or they come to Newport to see all the skippers and all the boats, and yeah, that's very welcoming for us.
Will, is it unique being here in the United States versus all the European places that you've been to in your sailing?
Yeah, I think you know, the last week's been fantastic. We've been out on the water almost every day. Firstly for some of our partners, but also to take part in the Liberty race earlier this week, and that was, you know, it's such a fantastic place to sail here in the Bay of New York, and to be passing in front of the Statue of Liberty and with Manhattan in the background. It was you know, fantastic experience, and you really don't need much wind to make it a really exciting day on the water. So for us, it's been totally unique to experience this new place. You know, a lot of the racing's based primarily in France. A lot of it's some of the teams are from the UK, but to reach this whole new market here in the US has been fantastic, and we've seen a lot of interest down on the docks, and people sort of asking about what are these boats, and what's the reason that you guys want to sail around the world.
Awesome. Well, I can't wait to see.
Sometimes we don't know ourselves too.
Perfect. Well, we're about to see some footage of the skippers, you know, taking advantage of all New York City has to offer. I know everyone there were some life goals to achieve here when people came to look at different places. We saw pictures of Clarice laying in Central Park. We saw people playing in Times Square. We saw people
on the Brooklyn
rooftops.
Bridge. Yeah,
on the Brooklyn Bridge.
I think we've seen sailors taking pictures
Everywhere.
all over the city. So
On Times Square.
yeah, I think they've all had a really good time here, and it's only a 2 or 3 week break they've had since the Transat CIC. So it's been a great way for them to unwind here in Manhattan and enjoy some of the sights to see.
Now, like both of you said, it's kind of hard to imagine that, we're sitting here, you guys prepared these boats, they're about to start, and you're 100 miles away from them right now. We just saw some live footage from one of the boats. We do have an attack rib or attack boat out there, what we call, that gives us footage from far away. I don't envy their ride back because I know that's not a very large vehicle, but I know that they're keeping their equipment together. But it's not unusual to visit an IMOCA out in the ocean in a motorboat, is it?
No, exactly. It's this type of start is very different to kind of the other starts we've done. In the other races that we've both prepared for Boris and Nico, it's involved sort of being on the boat right up until the 4-minute signal, which is the last moment you can normally have a crew member on board. And this time we sort of said goodbye to them 18 hours before. They're basically doing their own preparations. They're doing all their own works, and now they're out there getting ready to do these final bits to get ready for the start.
But it looks like these skippers are in their own zone as well. They will send some messages to the shore team to say like that they're relaxed or that they're good. Both Will and myself, we received some messages from our skippers saying that they're ready and that they thank the shore team for all the preparation on the boat. And it's different than normal, but I think it's good like this. It's good to accept that there are whales and marine mammals, and we're sportive. Everyone is accepting this, so it's a good compromise.
Great. Well, here we go
C'est
with
juste
the
dingue.
skippers in New York
comme ils
City.
disent, c'est amazing. Quoi.
Parfois ça donne un peu le tournis aussi, mais en tout cas voilà, on aura eu la chance de découvrir ça et de vivre ça.
We got our whole lives ahead. We got a million things in our head. When we all alone, we can do wonders. But we do it better when we with each other.
Ain't nothing holding you back. I'm just here to let you know that. Ain't no time to go back. I'm just here to let you know that.
Mais en mer, on est petit, on est personne au milieu de nulle part. Et on a presque l'impression que New York c'est tellement grand, on est petit au milieu de nulle part aussi.
We got our whole lives ahead. We got a million things in our head. When we all alone, we can do wonders. But we do it better when we with each other. When we all alone, we can do wonders. But we do it better when we with each other.
All right, that was absolutely fantastic. I mean, that is the show. To be in New York City, to be up on the wall, be in Times Square, have the boats on, 50, 100-foot screens. That must have been a sight.
Totally unique experience here in Manhattan and in New York City. I think some of the skippers there, saw them having a really good time, and it's really important in between these races to really unwind and relax. The races are 24/7, it's non-stop. They're going to be at sea now for 10, 11 days maybe, so they really need to have their stress levels nice and low and nice and relaxed before the start. So I think they definitely showed that they've done that the last few weeks.
But it's so good, not only for the skippers, but for the teams as well, to be around here. And it's such an iconical city and so special to be here and see all these boats sailing in front of the Statue of Liberty. And it brings so much excitement to our sports and what we do. And yeah, it keeps you motivating. We're not only preparing for a race around the world, but we're lucky enough to enjoy in every place we come and every stop.
Fantastic. Well, I think it's, we're going to be talking about the Vendée Liberty, which happened here on Governor's Island last week, and that's kind of part of that unwinding. Time to take friends out, time to take family out and showcase these boats. They were called speed trials. It's an exhibition race. You guys are familiar with that in all the classes that you've sailed in as promotions, but doesn't count to the racing. But it's just like that in Times Square. It's a chance to get these athletes out in front of them, a massive audience here in New York City. That's why we're here. And then hopefully as they follow this race, they'll get to know the sailors through people like you, get to understand how they work, how they live, and that they're human.
Exactly, yeah.
But for us, it's super nice as well to have so many people on the boat, to be able to host guests, to show them what we do and to really engage them in the sport. It's super important.
Fantastic. So what we're going to be talking about next is the Vendée Liberty. This is an exhibition race. It's a speed trials. There are heats of a couple boats that follow each other down a reaching track with a breeze off of the side of the boat, which is kind of the fastest point of sail, I would guess, for these boats.
Yeah, exactly. It's it's about a mile-long course. You're always trying to reach in these boats with these foils. You really get going fast when you've got the wind coming from directly across the beam. But the ability to show people on the boat and to bring people on board, there's nothing like it. And we had a really good time on the water, showing everyone the experience of firstly foiling. Being on these hydrofoiling boats is something kind of a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity for some people. And then also trying to be the fastest boat. We had some very close moments with the other boats trying to beat into the finish there. So although it doesn't count for anything, I think everyone's very competitive here and we're always trying to win. So
yeah, and one thing we noticed, sometimes the weather doesn't cooperate, right? And
Yes.
there were heats that had some sea breeze and heats that had some morning northerly winds and some drifters. Yannick Besteven, we said, won the Vendée Globe and took almost the longest time, like 40 minutes, while someone just took 3 minutes to do that course.
Exactly.
When you're on these boats, that seems to be just okay with all the visitors, isn't it?
Yes, I mean it's fine in the end. The skippers are able to sail these boats solo. So especially when you have a technical crew of 3 or 4 on the boat, it's really under control, and we can, well, let's knock wood, but we can manage almost all the conditions out here. Indeed, it was very shifty and very changing breeze all the time here in New York, but no, everything went well.
And I think the waters of New York, it's sailing's a game of sort of a chess game. It's a tactical, it's a strategy game, and even on this short course of 1 mile, we're still trying to choose which side of the course to go to, how to pick up the wind first, how to avoid the worst of the current, because you get a lot of the current coming out the Hudson River there. So I think it was still very exciting times on the water, and even when there's not much wind and we can't get on the hydrofoils, even those ones where they didn't have so much wind, I think they still had a very close racing there.
Yeah, it was absolutely amazing being on Governor's Island, having this kind of like reverse view of New York Harbor, but just staring at the Statue of Liberty. You can see here the whole time while we were out there. I mean, do you guys have to field a lot of questions from the guests, from the sponsors? Is it one of those kind of races where you're plenty happy to take your focus off sail trim just to inform your guests?
A bit of both. I have to say, when you're a professional sailor, you always see small things that you can adjust to make the boat quicker, right? So it's a bit of finding a balance, but it gives you so much excitement as well to tell people what you do and to show them the passion you have for this sport. So it's a bit of both, I would say.
Absolutely. And Will, I mean, I was trying to bait Rosie a little bit that it could be a little bit of a distraction. But man, especially when it was lighter winds here in New York City, everyone's having a really good time. They came on the shore. There were a lot of sponsors. There were some of the top French chefs in the United States here in New York City, sharing their food with us on the shore. I mean, the whole experience, actually, I travel around the world to see this stuff. That was absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, no, really fantastic, and it's hard not just to be looking at the views that you had around the boat. I think every time I looked out the boat, it was just absolutely incredible to be sailing 100 meters from the Statue of Liberty and sailing towards the financial district of Manhattan. It's totally unique experience, and probably one of the best places I've been for a race stop over here.
Nice, and this is part of a really full schedule. It's been like 5 or 6 days since that race, but a lot of work on the boat. One thing that we've been learning is how different people manage their campaigns. Obviously, Milizia is a pretty big team. Olsen PRB is a pretty big team. How much rest, after this Vendée Liberty race, that was a huge success, both commercially and with everyone who was involved with it. How much rest have you guys been giving your skippers since this, New York Vendée?
So if I look at our team, Nico took a week off with his family here.
Oh, wow.
1 week. They left last week. He has 3 kids, so it's quite a lot for him. So I think especially the last week he took a lot of rest. But for the technical team itself, we were here 3 weeks and we only took 2 days off. And like when we did the Liberty race, it's the first time again after all the reparations you do to hoist the sails and to see how the boat is doing. So that's always a crucial moment actually in this 3 weeks period to see if everything is still working and that the boats are ready again to go.
Awesome, and Boris is like super social. I mean, he and I talked for a long time about just foiling, surf foiling and wing foiling.
It's totally how he relaxes. He likes to be always interacting with other people, and that's how he keeps his mind fresh. And and keeps it to not get too stressed and sort of overly worried about the race. But right from the moment that we finished the Liberty race, the skippers, at least 1-2 hours a day, we're already looking at the weather, we're already starting to look at the strategy, and that's really the key things in the day before the race. You want the team to have got the boat totally ready by this point, so you don't have to worry about anything not working on the boat. And then the final few days, it really comes down to looking at the weather, looking at what the first few days of the race is going to be, so that you can start getting that mindset of, okay, I'm going to have 30 knots of wind, it's going to be really tough, really hard, or in this case of this start of the race, it's very light winds and it's going to be nice and relaxing. However, it's going to be quite frustrating to not be going as fast as you would like to, so it's actually a whole different challenge to having strong winds. So
Yeah, it's easy to forget that we're actually preparing for a transatlantic race right now. Like you said, even during the Vendée Liberty race in New York Harbor that we're looking at here on the screen from last Friday, that it's hard to keep your eye on the prize, even if it's just sailing back and forth up and down New York Harbor with all these views. But man, I mean, it's going to be exciting when we see the live footage from the boats to recognize and try to get our heads around this idea that these individuals have been by themselves, for almost 20, not quite 24 hours, but overnight, and putting things together. They're in touch with their shore crew. But it's easy for us to say, sitting here on top of the Horizon Media headquarters, just right where we're sitting. Taylor Swift did an iHeartRadio promotion here. We've had Robert De Niro, the actor, downstairs doing movies. This is a really famous place with a lot of amazing people come through.
Yeah.
And these sailors are just part of that kind of landscape, that awesome wallpaper that's in New York City. But they're a little bit different. We saw them going through Times Square with their foul weather gear on. They're doing something out in New York Harbor that no one's doing. But they're about to go across an ocean.
Yeah, exactly. I think to do this sort of sport of solo sailing across the Atlantic, around the world later this year, you have to be a really special individual. You have to have a really strange desire to be alone and to be sailing on these boats, which are really challenging, 24/7. No toilets on board, not a proper bed, no showers.
You're saying that like it's a good thing.
Yeah, it's a really strange thing, and I hope Rosie can relate to this as well. But we both sailed around the world on one of these last year, and the month afterwards you don't want to look at the thing for a while. You don't want to be back on the boat, but a couple of months later you start to get an itch to be back out there, and I think that's what every skipper out there will have. They'll have this desire to be back out on the sea, kind of facing the elements by themselves, just with their boats alongside them. And I think these final few moments as they come into the race as well, they're going to be going, the final preparations is really tough. When you're by yourself, they've got to be choosing their sails, they've got to be lining up the boat on the start line to not cross the line too early, and also they've got to be communicating as well and talking to everyone back on shore about what's going on and if everything's okay. So
I think in a way it's nice as well that they had some time to leave the busy city behind. Like what Will said, you need to have a special character to be able to sail alone for 80 days in the Vendée Globe. And these people, they like to be alone. Most of them, they're okay to be alone with not too much impulses from the land. And it's a kind of a big transition from the busy New York City to solo back on the boat by yourself. So I can imagine it's actually quite nice for them to have 18 hours to calm down, to relax, and to bring your focus onto the sailing, because it is a big shocker. I remember when Will and myself came back from the ocean race, or in every stop, you're flabbergasted when you step back on land with the smells, with the sound, with the people, and everything is coming back like right in the face. And I can imagine it's kind of nice to have this period. I was a bit jealous yesterday when I had to leave the boat, to be honest.
Yeah, but you're right. It works in the reverse way right now. If they just had everyone on the boat 5 minutes ago, now they're in the middle, starting into a race. That's a shocker too. So, and it's funny that you say that, because when I interviewed everyone, I was a little bit surprised that they're like, yeah, I can't wait to be by myself, know, and this is going to be great. And I thought there'd be more like, oh my God, I have so much work to do by myself and have to keep myself occupied. But it was the opposite. Clarice said it, Benjamin Dutroux said it. They were like, yeah, I'm ready. I can't wait to be by myself. And
exactly.
They were almost apologetic, like, no offense, to their shore crew, but I'm ready to go.
But there's a lot of duties as well for these skippers on the shore. They're not only sailors, no, they're head of the campaign, so they're directing in connection with the sponsors, with all the activations, what's happening here. They're running a team, a big team, sometimes 15 people. So there's a lot of expectations from them on the land. So I can imagine when you step on that boat that a lot falls off your shoulders and you can just focus focus on what you like to do.
Yeah. This like Will said in the very beginning. This is such a unique start. It's kind of a cool format. We're doing it to stay away from marine life. In 2016, there was a lot of marine life between New York Harbor and the continental shelf, which is where they are right now, where the ocean drops down to thousands and thousands of feet. So
yeah, we're actually getting some of the onboard footage here from some of the boats. We see Sam Davies there grinding really hard, so she's obviously pulling up a sail or trimming the sails, and that's what all of these skippers will be doing at the moment. They'll be trying to get the boats ready and going as fast as possible, as close to the line as they can when the start gun goes. It'll be slightly bizarre as well because they're not actually they're only gonna have themselves to regulate the start.
Yes.
They're only gonna be able to look at the skippers around them and not have hundreds of spectators of boats around them like usual. So they're gonna have to be using their computers, their onboard navigation systems to try and identify how to be on the start line at the right moment. But I always remember this time of the start being, really stressful. This is where you're really tense. You want to get it perfectly right. You don't want to make any mistakes. As you always say, you can lose the race on the first day, but you definitely can't win it. So I think all these skippers will be trying to balance between getting a good start and going towards the Sable d'Olonne as quick as possible, but also making sure they don't take too much risk and put themselves out of the race or end up interacting too much with the other boats there.
How many minutes do we have until the start?
Right now, it's
4 minutes to the start now.
4 minutes to the start.
Yeah. And I think the one thing that we can't forget about, we're here because of the Vendée Globe. We're here because of all these unique individuals getting ready to start and getting to know what each person's kind of Vendée Globe. What do you guys would call it? A Vendée Globe journey.
Yeah. It is a journey. It's some of these teams have been preparing for 4 years since the finish of the last Vendée Globe in 2021. I've been working with Boris, and he's, as soon as he came to that finish line of the last Vendée Globe, he was already focusing on how am I going to get a boat for the next one, how am I going to be ready for it, and that's really how long it takes, this sort of journey to the start line. This is how long it really takes, and this is the final sort of hurdle or the final step, this New York Vendée to the Sable d'Olonne, and where the start of the Vendée Globe will take place in a few months' time now. So.
Cool. Well, as we get into this,
I'm starting to get nervous, to be honest.
Yeah. So we're right into the pre-start right now. I think we kind of missed a little bit the opportunity there to talk about some of the individual. We were just jamming on our own explanation of all this. But we are right in the middle of a pre-start right now. We've got about 3 minutes to the start. We're on board with Louis Berton.
So he's in the back of the boat there. This is the cockpit of his boat, and he's on his pedestal there, grinding the sails.
Yeah, Louis had a challenge with his boat today, and Johan Risham helped him out. There was and gave him a spare part that he gets to use.
Yeah, exactly. Louis got a little bit of a get out of free card. He unfortunately had a damage on the front of his boat. Two of the furlers, which helped to roll up some of the head sails on the boat, were damaged. And luckily, one of the other skippers, Johan Risham, sort of came to rescue there and offered him his spare furler on the boat, which he carries for his own spares, so that Louis could take part in the race and make sure he made it to the start line if possible. So I think Louis Burton's going to be really thankful to Johan there, and hopefully we'll get a little bit more information on that later, but great to see him on the start line now.
Absolutely, and if you can watch a tracker on the website, on the New York Vendée website, you can also follow this on Facebook and follow up with our news on Instagram. And the one thing about this,
individuals, we will give navigation updates as well about where the skippers are.
Yeah, absolutely. And just to remind everyone, we are in a start out basically 100 miles from Newport, 90 miles from Newport, 90 miles from New York City, out on the continental shelf, and they're starting between two GPS, Global Positioning System, waypoints that they have in their computer, which is, we have 1 minute to go to the start. They have it plugged into their computer, just like you would even if there was a boat and a buoy. They would still have these waypoints plugged in their computer. And what are they doing right now in these final seconds in this last minute?
Yeah, exactly. So this it's all about the time on distance. Exactly 2 p.m. New York time, that line is going to open and they're going to be allowed to cross it. So like you said, it's two waypoints in the ocean, 6 miles apart. So they've got quite a long line for 30 plus boats.
Can't even see the other end.
Yeah, exactly. Can't even see the other end. So you've really got to choose your strategy and which end you think is going to be better for crossing the Atlantic. And then firstly, they have to go to the Share the Ocean waypoint. So this is a waypoint 100 miles southeast of the start line. they have to sail to this waypoint first before then going to the Sable d'Olonne. So the goal for them is going to be choosing which end of the start line. I think I saw a lot of the boats looking like they were going for the western end of the line to try and get south and towards the Gulf Stream, which then allows you to get faster towards this waypoint and then make their way towards the east.
Gotcha. Yeah, Rosie, we can't forget about that one big feature in the North Atlantic, the Gulf Stream running north and then running northeast and then heading due east towards Europe.
Exactly. That's the Gulf Stream, what starts in Mexico and ends in Europe. And that's what a lot of boats will try to take advantage of. As we said, there's not much wind. So they really try to stay in that Gulf Stream and take the right flow here.
Awesome.
And we just saw some of the race control, who's here in New York and who are
actually
managing
inside here.
Exactly, who's managing this start. And in order to make sure that none of the skippers cross the line early and get a penalty, they've got trackers which are sending very up-to-date GPS positions
every
of each
second,
of the boats every second
at the moment
to make sure that the boats don't cross the line early and don't receive a penalty of 3 hours to their overall finish time. So
if they cross that imaginary starting line early, they get 3 hours to their overall time.
Exactly. Yeah.
Which seems to us, here we go, we're on board with Maxime Sorel. It looks like we've just started. We're 1 minute after the start.
Exactly.
So
Yeah.
everyone, they have their big sails up, probably a J0. They're flying it from the bowsprit and they try to go at maximum speed here.
Yeah, so this is looking forward on the boat, so this camera is on the mast and it's pointing forward to that head sail. And we can see a lot of the other skippers. Oh, there we go, we've got Boris in the top right there. This is the cockpit of the boat there. He's just taking a look outside in the top right there.
Yeah.
Because
Even the starting line is quite long. You always have to look out because these boats are really made for offshore sailing, made to be alone at the ocean and not in tiny spaces. And
but I think
to avoid
what's really interesting to see here, Rosie, is how relaxed they all look on board. You know, they're wearing
they're
shorts
happy,
and t-shirts.
they're finally gone.
It's very similar to the sailing we had here in New York just a few days ago there.
And we are 1 minute after the start of the New York Vendée. We're off.
Exactly.
We're running. These boats are on, the breeze is coming over the right side, the starboard side of the boat. It doesn't look super windy there. It's blowing, what is it, blowing out of the south-southeast. But here we are, that 6 mile long line off the shore, 90 miles off New York, off Newport, back into the ocean, and then what is it called? The Share the Ocean waypoint, due south. Why are we doing that one?
So the main reasons for this one is to make sure we really avoid those marine mammals. There's recently been some sightings further north. And so the goal with this waypoint was just to bring the fleet a little bit further away from that area, so we really don't risk having any collisions with these mammals. And really, we are trying to share the ocean. You know, we get to use the oceans as our race course, as our playground. But we know that a lot of marine mammals really rely on these areas. So if we can really consider them as much as possible with our racing, then we're going to do it in every way possible. And it's really great to see how this race is considering this more and more. Especially with these sort of very high-speed boats. But great to see them start like this. Great to see them nice and relaxed, not too worried. It looks like everyone's got a nice clean start there. And I'm sure that as soon as they've taken that start and they've trimmed on their sails, got the boats up to speed, I think they're all going to be going outside for a breath of fresh air because it looks really hot and really sunny with these inside cockpits designed for these big sort of storms and these big, much more rough conditions, which is what they're usually going to see on this race.
All right, well, we are going to be on live with Nicolas Lundvin, one of the greatest navigators in our sport, teammate with Rosalind's teammate from Olsen. We'll let Rosalind have that first question with Nicolas. We got a couple minutes with him right here. We just started the New York Vendée.
Hello, Nico, ça va? He is looking outside to see if everything goes well. I'm not sure if you can hear us. At the moment he is pressing the keel up. I can hear the sound. So we have a canting keel, 4.5 meters under the boat. There's a big bulb of a couple of thousand kilos and we can lift it up. So that means there is a little bit of pressure and Nico lifts the keel up to generate more righting moments.
So in the cockpit of Holcim, because you obviously know this boat very well, Rosie, what's the difference compared to some of the other boats we might have seen there? You can see each cockpit is slightly different shapes, but what's your favourite features of this cockpit?
So my favorite features of this cockpit, it's quite nice with the 2 winches on each side. It's really functional for a single person, so you can easily trim all the sails, hoist the sails. It's so low. It's half open on the back, as you can see. Nico is sticking his head out now, and on the back is always open to keep the fresh air. From the inside, we have a navigation station, one seat in the middle. It's pretty comfy and built for a single-handed.
And what about the height? Because obviously on Malizia, we had a huge headroom. We really didn't want to compromise much on comfort.
Indeed, in Malizia you could stand up, but I'm quite tall, Dutch, so I can't stand up. This boat is built for a bit shorter sailors, so I have often pain in my back. But we can adjust that in the next years.
It's really interesting to see the differences with the different boats and how each skipper goes around the sort of technology questions with these boats of how much do I want to make this boat a pure speed machine versus how much do I want to just be able to live on the thing and actually survive well, and especially in these conditions where it's light winds, it's very hot, you have to be sticking your head out all the time to see what's going on. You don't really feel the wind like you would on a normal boat with a much more open cockpit, and so that's interesting to see the skippers and their different approaches to this.
Exactly.
Cool. And we are right now we are still live with the start of the New York Vendée transatlantic race. Last chance to qualify, really test your boats under competition, which is a totally different program than just reaching around the ocean testing your sails and your equipment. And the way it works with these technical things is that we just tried to talk to Nicholas Lindman. We can see him, we can hear him. He either can hear us or he wants to just go faster. He was probably putting more keel on, so a little puff of wind going faster. Right now our French live is with Maxime Sorel, and we're going to have Boris next, and hopefully we'll have a little better luck talking to Boris. He's a great friend of both of you.
He's very social, let's see.
Yeah, let's see how it works and see if we have some contact with him.
Yeah. No, Boris was feeling very relaxed before the start. It's really good to see. He finished second in the Transat CIC over here to New York, so I think he's feeling really confident in his boat and in himself at the moment. So obviously one of the team members, I'm very happy to hear that as well. But it looked like he was doing well on the start there, and the first few days of this race is going to be really challenging mentally for these skippers. We're only expecting them to cover a few miles in the first few days of the race, and we would normally expect to see them covering 500 plus miles in a day. During the transatlantic leg during the ocean race last year that Rosie and I did, we covered over 600 miles in a day, and
642 nautical miles in 24 hours.
So what's that average speed, Rosie?
That's 27.4 knots, I think.
That's ridiculous.
That's super fast, but as Will said,
I'm scared to do that for a couple minutes. I generally don't like even driving that fast.
But Will, maybe you can explain a little bit about the weather situation and why there is not much wind now. And
yeah, no, exactly. So here in New York a couple of days ago, we had it's nice and sunny today, but we had a really horrible warm weather front situation come over, a lot of rain, and that front is now sitting sort of 100 miles in front of the fleet, slightly further to the east of them, and the goal for them is really to try and reach that as fast as possible, because behind it they've got some very light winds to the west, and that's what they're sailing in at the moment. So for the first 24 hours we can expect them to see them sailing in a southwesterly wind down to the Share the Ocean waypoint, before they start picking up a more northeasterly wind, which will allow them to point their boats towards the east and towards the finish. But there's going to be many challenging conditions the first few days. It's really not a typical situation for the North Atlantic at the moment. You would usually expect them to see them pick up a low pressure system and be able to ride that across the Atlantic in 25 knots of wind, doing similar boat speeds to that, sort of 20-30 miles an hour.
And sailing more wider angles, like reaching or even downwind. Normally it's very quick from west to east, and now it's looking like a bit different as well, because of the high in the Azore is normally on the Azore, but now it's a bit higher up. So we will see good weather in Europe in the next days, but it's going to be tricky for the fleet to reach land.
And I think, like we said earlier as well, the Gulf Stream is sitting about 80 miles to the south of the fleet at the moment, which is where they're sailing towards now. And once they can pick up that, they've got up to 4 knots of current, 5 or 6 miles an hour, pushing them towards the east, and if they can pick up that really warm flow of water that's heading over towards Europe, that's only going to help them push along. But in these boats, doing 20-30 miles an hour, normally it's not so important, but in these light winds they're really going to have to think about that.
Now
we see some live footage.
All right, so
again.
We have about a minute before we get Boris. This is live right now. What you guys were talking about was this really complicated weather, but that is not just physical, changing sails, getting every ounce of speed out of the boat, but it's very taxing mentally too. And we're going to be hopefully we're going to grab Boris here in a second. They're live. They just started the New York Vendée. We're 9 minutes into the race, and it seems like already a lot has happened. We're thinking about a lot. We're going to be talking to them. how much of a distraction is that for Boris? Is that something where, even though this is a 3,000-mile race, it is a bit of a sprint, it's light, like Will was saying, there's a lot to think about in terms of the weather and keeping the boat moving. I mean, it's a challenge, isn't it?
It's a challenge, but I think that's in the end what we do as a sailor. You need to be able to be good in multiple areas. You can't just be a good driver or a good navigator, especially when you sail these boats solo. You need to be okay in everything, and there's so much to manage, from the weather to the boat to the right sail choices.
People interviewing you?
Yeah, exactly.
And I think it was, those shots we just saw there from the 4 cockpits. You just got to imagine what's going through their minds at the moment. Are they thinking about the boats near them, the boats around them, and are they,
All right.
what are they focusing on?
Well, here we are. We're with Boris Herman. We are 10 minutes exactly into the start of the New York Vendée 3,000-mile solo transatlantic race, getting ready for the Vendée
Yes.
Globe. And Boris, can you hear us, buddy? Hey, Boris,
Hello?
can you hear us? Yeah, can you hear us okay?
No, I get some headphones.
Yeah, go get them, buddy.
So what you saw, Boris was trimming on the grinder, and he was looking at the back, so he's trimming up the Traveller. That means the main sail, so he wants a little bit more pressure. And it was his birthday yesterday, so don't forget that.
You can see he's looking in his pockets. He's like, where did I put my headphones?
Yeah.
He's looking at the navigation,
All
quickly
right, we're
grabs
ready
the phone.
for you, Boris.
Okay, so hopefully he's gonna give us a nice tour of the boat in a minute. I think he's just lost connection quickly there, but it's great to see him so relaxed after the start. He's obviously happy with the job he's done. He's not in too much pressure with other boats around him. He's got a nice clean start. So if we do manage to get to speak to him, that'll be really great to hear exactly what's gone on the water and what's going on with the boats around him and where he is positioned to the rest of the fleet. But
So Malizia is built in 2022, launched in 23. It's a new generation boat. Boris sailed the Vendée Globe, the last Vendée Globe in 2020, and finished on the second place. And there's a new generation foil. So some of these boats, they have the new foils, and some of the boats, they don't have foils, but it's like a kind of a difference in the fleet in terms of boat performance.
Hydrofoils, right? That can lift the boats out of the water, and some of them don't have that because they're older boats.
Exactly, it's older boats, but in the end they all sail around the world, and it's a big adventure for all of them, for sure.
Yeah, we're a little bit 0-2 on our tech right now on this side, but that's okay.
I think it's perfectly expected. These skippers have just started a transatlantic race. It's the first 10 minutes after the start is probably some of the most stressful in the entire race. You're as close as you're going to be to the 30+ boats in the fleet, and with these size of boats trying to cross around with each other, it's really challenging. And I think what will be really interesting to hear about later is how Louis Berton actually managed to pick up this damaged piece from Johan Risham and to pass that over between the two boats. I think that was a really fantastic thing to see. We're now on board with Justine Metro. You can see the slightly different shaped cockpit there.
Yeah, a lot of sunlight coming into that cockpit, a little bit higher up, more open cockpit. Is that an older generation boat that she's on, or is it?
Yeah, exactly. So this was originally Chorale. It was for Jeremy Bayou in the last Vendée Globe. So one of the first sort of really fast foiling boats that was launched in 2017 with these much bigger size of foils. On board now we've also got Sam Davies in the top left there. You can see her Initiativescours. You got Sébastien Simon, Groupe de Breuil in the top right. And then in the bottom right, that's Charlie Dallon on Massif, who he finished second in the Vendée Globe last time.
First across the line now.
Exactly, first across the line, and due to sort of a technicality with some rescue points. But you can see his shape of cockpit there is totally different. He's just looking out the window there on the bottom right, probably checking his competitors around him or looking at the sails, making sure he's happy with the boat. But I think he finished fourth in the Transat CIC recently 3 weeks ago, and he's notoriously always up there either in first and second place on the podium. So I think he's going to be really hungry for a nice good finish in this next race.
And Rosie, I have a question for you. While our French are going live with Jeremy Bayou, and we'll be preparing to talk to Clarice Kramer from La Occitane, her new sponsor. We just saw Justine Metro. We've seen her for almost the last 20 years in ocean sailing, in every major event. Volvo Ocean Race, the Ocean Race, Olympic sailing. And I was talking to Antoine, my kind of counterpart on the French side. I was like, Justine's not just the top female sailor of her generation. She's one of the top sailors of our generation.
Yes.
Wouldn't you say that? I mean, I
yes.
think almost done trying to say, accolades for just women, but
No,
she's one of the best sailors in our generation.
For sure. Justine Martrot is one of the best sailors in the offshore world. Like, she sailed 3 times the Volvo Ocean Race. Setting up again for the Vendée Globe. She is a super good sailor, very team character. I remember last year in the ocean race with 11th Hour Racing, the skipper he told me she is one of the key members and she has so much knowledge and she brings. She's speeding up the whole team.
It's her mindset as well. She has a really good mindset for dealing with these big challenging races, and I think she's really happy to not just follow. She's happy to find her own strategy, to really sail her own race, and that's what's really hard to do in these sorts of races. When you have 30 or so boats around you, you always want to not go too far from your competitors, but the reality is with the weather, with the different situations here, we've got a nice graphic of the tracker here, of them all crossing the start line and heading to the south. But you imagine when you've got all these boats around you, you're not going to want to let them get too far away from you, but the reality is you need to sail your own race, you need to do what you think's best, and that's what she's really good at and is really strong. And I think one of the reasons why 11th Hour won the ocean race last year was due to having her on the team. So
for sure, all eyes on her for the next ocean races as well.
Exactly.
And here we are on the tracker. We are 15 minutes off the starting line for the New York Vendée, the last chance to add miles and qualify, at least in miles wise, not necessarily get selected yet, to sail in the 2024 Vendée Globe. And so they're off. The fleet is obviously really close. It's light winds. They are only 16 minutes into this race. But Will, like you said, they're heading to a waypoint south. They're allowed to go as fast as they can to that waypoint right now.
Yeah, exactly. So interestingly, the waypoint is actually to the southeast, so off to the bottom right of the screen. But because of the weather, because of the strategy situation, it looked like the advantage was to try and get to the south first, towards that Gulf Stream, which is 80 miles south of them now, and then they get a nice current, a nice conveyor belt, which is going to take them to the east and towards that waypoint. So you can see some of the fleet there. There's 2 boats down on the bottom left, which they've got a really nice start at the western end of the line. I would say that they're probably going to be leading the fleet, and based on the colours of the boats, that looks like it's Thomas Royan or Sam Goodchild there on the bottom right, and they're looking quite strong.
Louis Bertrand, York Vendée, right in the middle.
Yeah.
There's just what we call that, the point is flattened, is what we call that in team racing, when all the boats are kind of level.
Exactly, it's definitely all to play for here. The start line isn't where you're going to win this race. So as long as you get a nice clean start, and you get away from the line cleanly, then it's really down to what their strategy is going to be for the next 48 hours of getting along that course, getting around the Share the Ocean waypoint, and then off towards the east, towards the Sabdelon.
We missed that opportunity to talk to Nicholas Lundvin, but he's your co-skipper on Holcim.
Nico is the skipper on Holcim, indeed, and he is sailing now, departing, preparing for the Vendée Globe in 2024.
And how was he feeling for this race? How was he?
Yeah, so good. Like Nicholas, he's very calm character, and you can explode a bomb. I remember sometimes in the ocean race last year, Will, weird things happen, but he is very chill with everything, and that's the same now. He's always good, always calm, relaxed, and he was ready to go. He was looking forward to go. And we finish in Le Sabdelon, so that's the headquarters of PRB in France, so there's a bit of pressure on his side.
Okay. Cool. All right. Well, we were just talking about Nicholas Lundvin. Now we're with Boris Herman. Boris, are you there with us, my friend? We want to check in with you. We are 18 minutes into your transatlantic. What's going on, brother? It's too early for a nap, Boris.
So sometimes there's a little delay there in the connection, but you can see he's just jumped back inside and is playing with the keel. That's
just checking in with you, Boris, if you can hear us.
A bit more keel.
So what do you think, guys? Just adjusting the keel to the breeze. If there's more breeze, he swings the keel further out to windward for a more riding moment. Vice versa.
I think what's really great to see from this camera shot is we're looking forward now into the cockpit, and you can see all those ropes, all that spaghetti going around the boat, which is all the control lines he's pulling and adjusting, and he's running around that boat trying to get it to go. Exactly, yeah, he's really trying to get every ounce of speed he can out of that boat, and is really pushing. So I'm very happy to see that personally.
But that's not sustainable, guys, right? So in the beginning of this race, is he just trying to get just a little bit ahead of the boats around him and get a jump in the direction, because I mean, what happens if you're one boat length behind getting into the Gulf Stream?
Well,
does it change?
Well, it's especially when you've just come off a start line like that. Imagine you've got a boat very close to you. You might not want to get into their dirty air, and because as soon as you get behind that boat, then you're gonna
lose and lose and lose.
Going. So maybe he's got a boat very close to him, and he's trying not to lose his lane towards the south.
Right.
Exactly.
Because
But just
little moments like that, you've got to really choose your moments where you gotta push and you gotta be going fast.
He's looking at a piece of paper here.
no,
right
he's
now.
looking at his phone probably to make
Oh, he's looking at
connection.
his phone,
As you can
okay.
see, Boris can stand up in this cockpit. It's quite high, and you see
Yeah.
a table in front of him with 4 winches. So that's from
we
there
go.
he can organize the entire boat. And he was just going outside. To,
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we tried, and but it was good to see him working so hard. And I was starting to ask you, that's not fully sustainable, right? To work at that pace for even more than a couple of hours, or even an hour sometimes, right?
Exactly. It's about choosing your moments during the race to really be pushing. And you've got to. But before the start with Boris, we sort of identified the moments in the race where we thought it was really crucial to be pushing, to be going fast, so that you can then get a jump ahead. And that's what the game of sailing and weather strategy is about. It's about choosing those moments where you can push, and the moments where you can be a bit more relaxed, and you can sort of eat, sleep, take rest, relax, so that you're prepared for that next moment where you need to be pushing. But
We just saw Yannick Bestaven as well from on board. He was the winner of the last Vendée Globe,
the man to beat.
the man
Cool.
to beat.
Well, let's shift gears. We're getting people when we can. Nicholas Lundvin from Rosalind's team, and we're going to see if we can hear him. Our camera's a little frozen just for the moment. But we were talking about him. You were saying how he was feeling going into this race, going into bringing the boat over from Europe. But my impression of Nico and my impression of Will as well is that people have different strengths on their boats and in this fleet. And to be a navigator is a big bonus when
Yes.
you're a solo sailor. And I look at Will as probably one of the top navigators in the world right now. He just happens to be a short crew right now, but also a solo and double-handed sailor. But not every skipper can say that. But it seems like Nico gets brought on to other teams to be a navigator. So it seems like you two kind of maybe are cut out of the same piece of cloth. But Nico is probably one of the best navigators in the world as well.
Yes, like what you said, Nico is often hired by other teams to support them in terms of weather and navigation, and that's what he did in the ocean race, and that's what you see. He is always every single moment of the day he's looking at the weather.
Yeah.
We share crew houses, and he is just always behind the computer getting new data. It's impressive
It's
how
a different
passionate
mind
he is.
that can
Yes,
figure that
it's
stuff out.
next level where he is with his mind and the rest of the world. That's my feeling sometimes with
He was
Nico.
so focused, isn't he? He was actually
Yes.
our navigator on board the ocean race alongside Boris, Rosie, and myself, and he was really so focused, always looking at the weather, and I'm sure that's exactly the sort of preparation he's done for this race. So we've got Yannick Bestaven on board now, the man to beat. So
the
since
current holder of the Vendée Globe trophy.
Exactly. So since the last Vendée Globe, finishing in 2021, he's got a new boat with Matricoque. It's a similar design to the Verdiers of the last Vendée Globe, which Pivia and Linked Out had. And so he's got a slightly different shaped cockpit to everyone else, but he obviously has a very good mindset for these longer distance races. He didn't actually win that Vendée Globe until the final few moments. For the first half of the race, he was really not winning it. He was really behind, and it was that second half of the race, the last 40 days, that he really came into his own and really showed his true potential, probably bringing a lot of that engineering side.
Yes, he's an engineer, and he co-designed the hydro generators.
The Watton Sea, which is the
Exactly.
generators that are off the back of many of these boats, particularly the board boats that keep that hydro generator in the water more than the foiling boats do.
Exactly.
Exactly.
I learned that today, or the other day.
And just on these images, Rosie, that top left, those love hearts I see there, that's Initiative's Cure, and you obviously know Sam Davies quite well. You've been sailing with her quite a bit and quite connected. Can you tell us about her and how she's doing?
So Sam Davies is a role model in the sailing world, especially for women sailing as well. She has a new generation boat launched in 2022. She became third in the Transat this way. Super strong competitor, and she really has a message with her sponsor. You see all the hearts. and she is actually making sure that children, they can get heart surgery in areas where they can't get, so they bring them to France, and that's why she's doing. So she's really sailing with a mission, and that's she's passionate about that. Very inspiring.
Yeah, and she's had a couple different tries at the Vendée Globe. She's been third over the line, and then fourth in the Vendée Globe. She's been dismasted trying to complete the Vendée Globe. She was what she called the person in charge. She didn't like the skipper title for SCA in the Volvo Ocean Race, and she's really considered definitely one of the top skippers in the world in ocean sailing. But I love that trend. You brought up Initiatives Kerr with the hearts. That trend in sponsorship. In the Around the World races before, it was like beer sponsors, alcohol, or something like that. And now there's a really great opportunity to use to address social issues, to address environmental issues, to allow groups of corporations to back those programs, not have their names, not have their corporations up there, but have they'll be sponsoring an initiative like Initiatives Kerr.
Exactly, and that's really what you see in this sport. There's a shift in terms of sponsors, and most they sail with a mission. Malizia is sailing with a mission for climate action. Holcim sails with a mission to raise the flag to go circular. And I think in this way, for us as sailors, we are more connected. It gives us more a purpose of what we do. And I think that's really motivating.
Exactly. If we can share through our sailing the different kind of objectives of the campaigns, then that's really fantastic.
All right. Well, we were just talking about Initiatives Kerr and that awesome trend at the start of this New York Vendée, that trend to have more purpose in your sponsorship. But Sam, we're starting a transatlantic race. Can you hear us okay?
It looks like she's just disconnected there and
I
frozen.
think we're first, guys.
Yeah, but we've got a great shot of her there in the cockpit. You know, a lot of the time we saw that cockpit empty. She's obviously running around that boat, just like Boris, just like Yannick.
Is that basically true? If she's not in there, she's doing something really
Exactly.
important.
It means she's on the deck. She's looking at the weather, and there we go. She's actually on the bow there. She's outside giving us a nice
Sam,
view.
can you hear us? We are with Will, Harris, Rosalind, and Chris. And we're trying to hear you. Sam, we're about 27 minutes into the New York Vendée, and we just wanted to get an update from you. Everyone's been pretty busy wearing themselves out a little bit. Just asking how you're going to pace yourself and how do you feel leaving New York? We can't hear you.
Looks like we can't hear her, but look at her. Her boat is perfectly set up.
Absolutely.
Sam looks happy.
Yeah. You can see how flat, calm it really is out there, and the boats are really going to be just ghosting along there. But great to see some of the boats around her, and
yes, and making the effort to talk to us such in this crucial and then busy period.
Great to see you, Sam.
Yeah, we're loving to see the trim of your boat. It's kind of glassy, but you're probably going faster than the wind right now. Thank you for giving us that tour of the fleet. Like we said, the point is flattened. Everyone's side by each.
Exactly. You see the solar panels on the roof of her IMOCA, and on the back, what we said, there's hydro generators to generate electricity.
But the fleet is so close there. You can see all the boats in the background. Very tight racing right from the start.
Awesome. I love the tour, Sam. You're the best. And I hope we get some audio in. But
you've got a big smile on your face, so it looks like you've had a good start.
But we're just wondering how long, maybe give us a number of fingers, how many hours before you can take your first nap? Maybe 1 finger per hour.
6 hours.
6 hours. Oh my goodness. Okay. Well, we hope you use that time to punch out, get your nose out on the fleet. Maybe be the first to the Gulf Stream tonight, and hopefully that'll work out for you. We've been really enjoying
seeing the fleet around here.
All right, Sam. Good luck and go get them. We'll be cheering for you. Wow, that was fantastic.
Yeah.
So she could hear us.
Yes.
You know, what can you gain from looking at that? I mean, glassy, but what do you think she's going, like 7 or 8 knots? in like 7 knots of breeze.
Yeah, it looks really glassy on the water, but you know these masts are 30 meters on these boats, so
Yeah, what's that in feet? Almost like 100 feet.
100 feet
100 feet.
almost. Yeah. Sorry,
Just checking.
European numbers, but so on the water you can almost look flat calm, but up there you might have 6-7 knots of wind, and these boats can easily go faster than the wind, so they might be doing up to 10 knots already, 10 miles an hour. Really great to see how close she was to the fleet. You know, you can see almost 20 boats in the fleet there, I would say, just around her. So they're going to have to be really keeping an eye out these next few hours. Like she said, 6 hours before her first sleep.
That actually kind of surprised me. We saw how hard Boris was working. We saw that she was outside working.
But it's the first moment that you really hit the start line that all the boats try to get up to speed. So that's what you do all the time. You set up your configuration, you're watching all the time the competitors because you see real time how fast they go. So you're pushing now for the next hours to make sure that you're as fast as possible, and you will not sleep before that. You will just try to push as hard as you can.
And exactly, and even when you do try to lie down for that first sleep, it's always hard when you're, you know, to imagine to try to sleep while you're actually racing. You know, it's a really hard, that first few naps is really hard to get into the rhythm, and you really have to try a few times before you manage to actually get that rest and that sleep. So
and you can see the fleet is just separating a little bit laterally from side to side, and even a little bit front to back. Like you said, those boats that start a little bit further to the west, a little bit further south, they're getting a little bit of an edge. I think we can see where Sam was, kind of just basically right in the middle of the fleet she was.
Right in the middle, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And those boats over in the west, it looks like they have started to edge forward. I think even in that 6 mile separation of the fleet, that they've got a little bit more wind out there in the west. So I'm hoping Boris is somewhere in that pack, and maybe Nico as well. But yeah, really good to see how the weather and the strategy is kind of paying off for different boats, and it's not just a straight line speed race. It's really a strategy call as well. So,
and I loved Sam's attitude. I loved how relaxed she was. I loved how relaxed Boris was, although he was working pretty hard. It's probably super hot in there. I mean, the one thing about these sailors is that they don't stop working. But Sam, I couldn't believe how happy she was, you know, to have their boat set up like that. I mean, are there times where if it ain't broke, don't fix it, you know, in terms of when you have your boat set up, if you're hitting the numbers, you're not always trying to go any faster?
Yes, I think that's the game. In the end, it's not always flowery and sunshine, as we say in the Netherlands. But of course, it's hard, and you always push. But sometimes it's just not happening, or your boat is broken, or you can't get the speed, and that's frustrating. And I think the key is to change that and to try to make the best out of it and to keep on pushing, because the finish is such far away, and today will look different than tomorrow and the day after.
Yeah. But I'm sorry to interrupt, Will, but how do you keep yourself? You can almost always be doing something in a sailboat.
yeah, you know, exactly. They've basically just started a 9-day work shift, so to speak.
Yeah.
You know, it's one way to imagine it. 27 minutes ago they started the shift, and it's not going to finish until they cross the line in Le Septalone. So although they might get moments where they get to rest and eat, they're always going to be having 20% of their mind thinking about what's going on with the boat and things like this. And here we hear Louis Berton speaking in French now. Okay, so Louis just talking about that situation last night where he broke something on his way out to the start line, and he sent a message to all the skippers asking if any of them had a spare piece that he needed to actually take part in the race, and he's saying that Johan responded to the call. He became a hero, and he managed to hand that piece to Louis just off the start line. We saw them do that this morning. And give it to him so that he could fix his boat and take the start line. So,
but how sportive is that?
Yeah.
Like,
you know,
this doesn't happen all the time, right? And there's usually a shore team running back to port and coming back out with a rib before it, or if they're amongst rules, you can head back to port and then have a mandatory stopover on some races. But man, this is one for the books to have someone hand across a piece like that. They're out all by themselves. There's no race committee out there. We don't have any other kind
but I
of
think
support.
it says something about the mentality of these sailors as well, and of these shore crews. The same here in New York, we had a big repair on our boat, but we got help from other boats, and I think that's the sportive side of everyone yeah, we are competitors, but you like to have more boats on the starting line, and you like to help each other to even make the start.
Well, and it doesn't stop until even when they're on the water. You know, these boats are going to be in the middle of the ocean now, more than 1,000 miles from land, sometimes 2,000 miles from land. Their closest place of survival, of rescue, of any help is their competitors around them. So each competitor really relies on each other, and it's a really close-knit community. And in some ways, this is the test for the Vendée Globe. You know, in the Vendée Globe, they're not going to be allowed to share these things once the start line's taken. Once you take the start, you're on your own. That's the way it is. But in the Southern Ocean, when they're even more isolated. It's probably a week from any sort of rescue. It's their competitors around them, which, as we've seen in previous editions of the Vendée Globe, it's the competitors who have had to rescue other competitors. And,
this was basically just like a mini version of a Southern Ocean rescue.
Yes,
exactly.
No,
and
very
we get to
special.
see it with very little consequence.
Exactly. So
which is really everything in slow motion.
Yeah, really great to see. And Louis obviously absolutely chuffed that he can take the start. And big pat on the back, I think, to Johan Risham there of Arkea Pat Prec. You know, he won this race into New York of the Transat CIC. He also won the Retourne à la Basse this November last year. So he's the one to beat at the moment.
He's won the Route de Rome in Class 40s.
Exactly, yeah. You know, he's a notorious skipper, and to be leading the fleet, and now to be handing off some of his spares. You know, he's potentially risking his own race by giving away some of his spares.
Exactly.
If he has a problem during the race, he's given away his spares. So very kind of him to do this, and very sportsmanlike to do it as well.
Yeah, I think there's something that, you know, for our audience out there that's listening live, you know, in this New York Vendée, it's a transatlantic race, it's 3,000 miles, but they're getting ready for the Vendée Globe Around the World race. And it's really easy for us to forget that. Like we said, we're sitting in sunny, amazing New York City. All the sailors had such a great time, guests, sponsors. But that connection, that reliance on another human being that these sailors have, that you have on crewed races, but it gets even more acute on the solo sailing races, and that we saw these two helping each other out here. It may seem like a small thing, but it's really heartfelt. These sailors cry when they see each other and when they leave the ports, because they know how serious it is, but how thankful they are, how grateful they are for each other's help.
But I think that's why, like, if you're a sailor, you know how it is to be out there. You experience it yourself, and you know what these sailors are going through, and that's the same for Will and myself sitting here right now. We go home today or tomorrow, but we will be at home, and our thoughts will only be with the skippers, and it's like we're sailing the races ourselves. I think it's a different type of life, and I think we should understand as well, there's only 28 sailors out there now, but there is a support group of a couple of thousand people around them, from shore crew, so technical crew, commercial, logistics, partners, sponsors, but as well the families at home. Like the life that all these skippers are choosing for is so different from any other job you can have in the world, and I think that's what we should realize as well, with having these 28 soldiers out there. They have such a big group around them.
One of those soldiers out there is Charlie Dallan, our friend, our second place, first across the line in the last Vendée Globe. We are 37 minutes in, Charlie, to the Transat to the Transat Vendée Globe, the New York Vendée. I am with Will Harris, Rosie
Kuiper, yeah.
Kuiper, and Chris Muessler. How are you, Charlie? Can you hear us, Charlie? Okay.
Yeah, I'm good. I'm good. Thanks. How are you?
Oh my God, I was stumbling over my words because I was so excited that we have you. We just started the New York Vendée, and you know, we're 38 minutes in, it's light. Sam Davies gave us a tour around, but you know, after such a big tour of New York City, here you are, you're by yourself. How did last night go, and are you just relaxing right now, or what's going on?
Yeah. So it's very to marathon or more quiet at the moment. Can get pretty noisy in an IMOCA, but at the moment it's pretty quiet, which is good. my ears are really happy to be back on Massif. You know, we have a very nice sunny start, and yeah, the fleet's on its way to France, which is good, going back to France. And yeah, that was a really good stopover in in New York, but now I'm really happy to be back into racing mode. I'm really happy with all the work the team did on Massif during these few weeks, and the boat is in really good shape now. So I'm really happy to be racing with the rest of the fleet back to France. It's gonna be a bit of a tricky crossing. We're not quite sure yet. Well, I'm not quite sure yet where I'm going to. Which path I'm going to take, as the situation on the Atlantic is unclear at the moment. But what we know is going to be a pretty light for a couple of days before the boat gets higher pace. But it's good way to be. It was pretty good actually to be back on the boat from yesterday. Was able to. That was like a smooth transition back to the boat. Saw everything, hoist the right sail for the start. Take my time. That was actually pretty good to have this 24 hours at sea before the actual start.
That's fantastic, Charlie. Well, thank you so much for giving us your time. I know it's the beginning of a pretty long race, even longer that it's lighter. And we're going to go check out a video of your competitors, Louis and Johan, and talk about their situation. But hey, good luck, Charlie. Have a great trip across the Atlantic.
Good luck, Charlie.
Good luck,
race.
Charlie.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. See you in the top. Bye.
Yeah, so we're about to hear about that situation we talked about with Johan Richon and Louis Bertrand.
Collision avec un OFNI, du coup pas mal de dégâts sur l'avant du bateau et notamment les emmagasineurs de voiles de portant. Et donc voilà, on a fait un petit message à tous les marins et Johan a proposé en quelques minutes de me prêter son emmagasineur de secours. Je me suis approché derrière doucement et j'ai pu le récupérer et mettre en place et je vais pouvoir réaliser la Transat New York Vendée dans les bonnes conditions. Donc sincèrement, du fond du cœur, merci, bravo pour cet esprit sportif, c'est vraiment super, j'apprécie, je t'en dois une et c'est la classe. À bientôt, ciao.
All right, well that is something you just don't see. It was like a mid-ocean rescue,
Yeah.
but delivering that furler part, throwing it in a bag in the water. Louis jumped onto his foil to grab it. That's fantastic. We're gonna have to wrap this up, but what do you guys think when you see something like that? It seems so simple. Just a boat sitting in no wind.
This is very special. What's happening here?
Unbelievable.
I kind of have goosebumps, so we have to explain why.
Yeah.
Well, it's so difficult to. First of all, a skipper needs to drop it in the water. Okay, that part is okay to do, but then to pick it up with such a big IMOCA, you have such a small engine.
Half jumping off the boat almost to reach in the water there. He's solo on the boat. There's no one picking him up there, so it's amazing to see the lengths that these skippers will go to for the racing. And great to see him in the race still. And wow, what a story.
Well, Rosalind Kuiper,
Yes.
from Awesome PRB, Will Harris from Militia. We are at the start of the New York Vendée. We are 42 minutes in. I like reading these little detailed numbers. We got to speak, or at least see, a lot of the competitors off that imaginary starting line, 90. Now they're more than 100 miles south of us, heading south to the Share the Ocean buoy to stay away from the ocean marine life. And it's been fantastic.